perspective presented by the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association, following our few principles of humanism.
We're committed to the use of science and reason for understanding the universe and for solving human problems. We're skeptical of untested claims of knowledge, but we're open to new ideas.
We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and in ending intolerance and discrimination. We are committed to the total separation of religion and government.
We affirm humanism as a realistic alternative to the theologies of despair and the ideologies of violence. We reject the concept of an afterlife and believe in living a full and rewarding life here and now.
We value and respect each individual's right to judge and lead their lives according to their own position, as long as it's respectful of other people, living in a free society.
We hope you enjoy today's program and others in the weeks to follow. Hello again. I'm your host, Harry Greenberger, and today we have an interesting topic which I hope I will be able to understand as the time goes along. My guest today is Dr. Frank Tippler. I read an article in the Times-Picayune that says, a Tulane physics professor is working on a project that's getting attention around the country. He's trying to prove mathematically and through experimentation that God exists. Dr. Tipler is a professor at Tulane in physics, and it says here he's trying to prove mathematically and through experimentation that God exists. He also says Professor Tipler has studied the universe for decades, from the splendor of the earth to the wonder of the heavens above. He admits that when he started on the research, he was the ultimate doubter and atheist. Well, you folks in the audience know that our organization and this program we are non-believers. So we are, in fact, atheists, and we are still atheists. Dr. Tipler, I'll let you start wherever you think our audience needs to know about you and what you're doing, okay?
Sounds good, Harry. I am always pleased to be in front of people who are convinced that rationality and reason and science are the way to go. And I've followed my entire life following those principles.
And you recognize that's our position as
yes.
secularists. Okay.
Yes, and I think you haven't followed reason far enough if you're still an atheist.
Right.
Because I think the evidence is very strong that God exists. But we have to define God in the right way. God was defined as the uncaused first cause, the cause of everything, but not himself caused. That's how the word God is defined by St. Thomas Aquinas and Moses Maimonides. Let's use that definition. Then I looked out in reality as shown by the laws of physics, and there is something that is the cause of everything, but not itself caused, and that is the cosmological singularity.
So stop right there. Is that what we're going to be talking about, the cosmological singularity?
Yes, I'm identifying it with God.
Well, okay. I've heard that phrase, but I have never understood it.
Well, if you go backwards into time, the universe gets more and more compact. And about 13.8 billion years ago, the universe had infinite density. This point of infinite density is on the edge of space and time. It's not in space and time. It's something completely outside of space and time. We call it a singularity because it is truly intrinsically infinite. Its density, for example, 13.8 billion years ago, is infinity. That's why we call it a singularity.
Now, is this what you're saying right now? Is this something that is generally accepted in the field of physics or some other field?
This is in physics.
All right, but they accept that concept of this infinite density concept?
They're disputing, my colleagues dispute whether it really exists. But there is no question that if you evolve the Einstein field equations, which we generally think is valid for the universe, that the universe had to begin in an initial singularity. That's just the mathematics. And I'm a mathematician.
Are you saying that was the position of Einstein, or that's what he was looking for?
Well, Einstein didn't have a clear notion, mathematically precise notion of God. He believed in God. He emphasized that he was not an atheist. But he thought of God as something as controlling the whole universe in a rational way. He didn't, as I said, he could not throw that into mathematical language. But Einstein died in 55. It's been quite a few years since then. And our knowledge of physics and our knowledge of mathematics has increased significantly since then.
And our knowledge of the cosmos has increased as well.
Exactly. Which is why I think that we can now say safely that we have a precise mathematical concept of God, God being the initial singularity, and we can now start researching what this singularity has as its properties and how it controls the universe.
Now I'm going to ask questions because this is a whole new subject for me. I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a physicist, I'm not an astronomer, but I forgot the question I was going to ask you now, but just go ahead, it'll come back.
Okay. No, I was trying to justify the existence of the singularity. That's a question of physics. Then we can argue about whether or not it is actually what the theists mean when they say God exists. I claim that that is what they mean, what the great theologians mean, because I've just told you that's what St. Thomas Aquinas and Moses Maimonides defined God to be, the uncaused first cause. Now, of course, I can't go back and ask Moses Maimonides and St. Thomas Aquinas, did I get it right? What I did do...
You can't. You don't accept the time travel concept that you could go back and live and exist in a prior period.
No.
Okay.
Although I'm given credit for inventing the notion of a possible how to create a time machine.
All right.
Google Tipler time machine.
Okay.
But I decided that after I published my initial paper on that, which I published for the first time in a major physics journal, a proposal for creating such a time machine that would actually allow you to go back in time, I decided there was a technical problem that general relativity in the end would not allow it. So I reject the notion of a time machine.
All right. I didn't mean to distract you.
Okay. The crucial thing is not whether time machines exist, they don't, but whether God exists, and we have to, as rational people, take into account the fact that God exists. If He does, we have to take into account the fact that God exists.
God being the creator of everything that exists. Is that?
That's, yes.
All right.
Now we have to make those words, creating everything that exists, precise mathematically. Otherwise, who knows what we're talking about.
All right. Now tell me, because you are a physics professor.
I'm actually a professor of both mathematics and physics.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask.
And I'm mainly in the mathematics department. I mainly do mathematics.
Okay.
Which is why my arguments are on mathematics.
You were identified in the newspaper as a professor of physics, but all right.
I'm that too.
Okay.
My PhD is in physics.
All right. Now, have you written am I remembering correctly, have you written a book?
Yes, I've written books on this.
On this subject?
On this subject. And the first one is the Physics of Immortality, in which I disagree strongly with the humanists. I claim there is an afterlife. And of course, it's an all rational afterlife, and the mechanism for afterlife is all described by physics. Basically, what I argue in the Physics of Immortality, that we will be all resurrected as a computer emulation in the far future by the beings in the far future. And they're, once resurrected, go on and live forever. So there is a precise notion of afterlife that makes all kinds of sense from the point of view of physics.
Well, what you just said really, I'm staggered by the fact that it is your position that each of us as an individual are going to be resurrected, or what is
Brought
it?
back into existence, yes, resurrected.
And what is this mechanism?
Well, we will be brought back into existence as a computer upload. That is, we will exist in a computer simulated memory in the far future.
Will we be aware that we are ourselves?
Well, of course, we have to be, otherwise we wouldn't be we, right? I mean, if you're not aware of yourself, you're not you.
Well, if you bring back everyone who ever lived, that computer's going to get overloaded.
No, because you have unlimited computer memory in the far future. That was the essence of the book, to prove exactly how the laws of physics would permit the creation of an unlimited size computer. As you're approaching into the final singularity, there are actually 3 singularities out there, which are really one. Does that remind you of any religion? But you can all prove this on the basis of careful mathematical analysis of the known laws of physics.
And every human being will be reconstructed no matter what kind of person they were. They
That's
could be
right.
a rapist or a dictator. Everyone will be brought back. And then
All I can prove is that the beings in the far future will have the power to do this if they wish to use it.
All right. Now, at what age would they bring you back?
What about all possible ages? They can do that too. They can bring you into existence at the age of 1, at the age of 2, at the age of 2.5.
Could I have 21?
Is that your favorite year?
I like those early 20s, yeah. All right, well...
the old Jewish tradition, in the medieval Jewish tradition, was that the resurrected would be brought back into existence with all their defects. And both of you and I have this white hair, indicating that we're not quite as young as we would like to be. You just mentioned 21. So what they envisage is you would be brought back into existence with all your defects. And so you would know it's you. And then these defects would be corrected. What I can do is show that that's possible for the beings in the far future. They can do this.
All right. Well, I assume that you are still calling this a theory.
Well, I can't prove. Well, I can get close to that, because here I would have to involve more physics that is probably appropriate to this program. But I think, given the laws of physics, I can prove that this power of these beings in the far future, I can prove that they will exist. I can't go further and say exactly what they'll do. I can prove that they will exist using physics, and I can prove they will have the power to do what I have just told you. Whether they'll use that power, that I can't prove yet.
Right. So you told me about one of your books. Do you have other books on along the same lines?
Yes, the other one is The Physics of Christianity. Now, there I am specifically seeing how the laws of physics would justify the specific religion, Christianity. Now, I mentioned earlier that if you analyze the physics sufficiently close, you figure out that there has to be really 3 singularities out there in reality. The one which the universe began in, the initial singularity. Then you can conclude there is a final singularity. And then there is a third singularity out there which we can't see from our universe, but which we can infer from the consistency of quantum mechanics that it has to exist. Now, a careful analysis of these 3 singularities shows that they are really one. They only seem to be separate from our way of looking at things.
Now, when you say the physics of Christianity, or is that what I'm looking at? Are you talking about Father, Son, and Holy Ghost? What Christianity are you talking about?
Well, first of all, you have to get the existence of God, because if God does not exist, Jesus cannot possibly be His Son. I think we can agree with that.
Yes, I agree with that.
Everybody agrees with that.
Okay.
So first of all, we have to establish the existence of God. I do that by using physics to establish the existence of a singularity, and then argue that this singularity is what the Christian and Jewish theologians meant when they used the word God. Now, I can't, as I told you, go back and talk to St. Thomas Aquinas of Moses Maimonides and ask them, is this what you meant by God? Yeah. So what I did do is go to one of the men recognized as one of the greatest theologians of the 20th century, Wolfhart Pannenberg, the German, who died this past September, unfortunately. And I discussed it with him in detail, and he said, if this entity, the singularity, has the properties that you claim it has, then it is the Judeo-Christian God.
Well, I understand the Judeo God. Christianity didn't replace that God. It was still the same God. So what,
it asserts that.
Why is Christianity what you're measuring instead of the Hebrew religion?
Well, remember that Christianity and Judaism are agreed that there is only one God. And it is the God of Moses and of Abraham.
All right,
there's no dispute there between Christians and Jews.
But that still doesn't include Jesus Christ.
Well, first of all, we have, as I said, we have to establish that there are three singularities out there which are really one. Because Christianity asserts that although there is only one God, it has this God has a threeness associated with him. And that's the first step. You have to associate you have to establish that there's actually a threeness to the singularity. So you can say that this actual God which exists is a triune God. Then, it takes a further step to establish any connection with Jesus Christ, because Christianity asserts that Jesus was simultaneously God and man. Now, it's been a huge debate in Christianity on what that phrase means.
Yes.
Now, I make a proposal of what it could mean in my book, The Physics of Christianity. And I show in my book how the resurrection could have occurred, how Jesus could have resurrected from the dead. Now, this is a separate resurrection from the general resurrection, which I discuss in The Physics of Immortality, which is bringing us all back into existence as a computer emulation, as a perfect model in a computer memory.
Now, you're teaching classes at Tulane.
I am.
Are you including what we are discussing here in any of those classes?
I used to have a special course entitled The Omega Point Theory, in which I was discussing how you can get the existence of God from reductionist scientific materialism. That was the course description.
Is that in the physics department or the
It was given in the
mathematics?
physics department.
All right.
Unfortunately, in a gross violation of this, a course was approved by all the faculty. We have a procedure at the university, like all universities, in which courses are approved. Now, you first have the approval of your fellow faculty in your department.
Okay.
Then the course has to be approved by a committee of the faculty as a whole. And this committee is rotating from various faculty in various departments. It was so approved. And I taught it for many years.
Okay.
Then, unfortunately, the administration decided this was unorthodox, and they ordered the course canceled in gross violation of academic freedom. Because what we professors decide among ourselves is sufficiently solid to be taught to students. That should end the question.
And you were getting students signing up for that
Of course.
the course.
Oh, yes.
Well,
I would generally try to teach it as an evening course, sort of extra curricular activity, because I think that we unfortunately don't have enough faculty at Tulane to teach all of the courses. And so I was teaching, most of my time was spent teaching more basic physics and mathematics courses, which we had to do. But I think that the subject fascinates me, and it was really a description of my research. Now, unfortunately, you have to fully understand what I am doing, you have to have a very sophisticated mathematical knowledge. Because I published this stuff, this material that I'm describing to you, in major refereed journals, peer-reviewed journals. So it's solid.
All right. Well, now back a few months ago when I first contacted you, you couldn't, you were not available on my taping dates. You said you were going to San Francisco to meet someone about bankrolling the experiment. What
Yes.
is that? What is that all
Well, I
about?
can't tell you because it's still under discussion, unfortunately.
All right, but the experiment, your experiment.
It's an experiment to actually test whether singularity exists.
Well, and what sort of equipment, or what does it take to do your tests?
What it takes is special devices which are capable of sampling the structure of the cosmic microwave background radiation, because the background radiation is radiation which is left over from the creation of the universe. So if you want to study the creation of the universe, you have to study the background radiation.
And that kind of equipment is available?
Of course. They've been studying the background radiation
right.
since the mid-1960s.
Well, can you get access to the people who have that kind of equipment?
We're buying the equipment.
You're buying it?
Yes.
But you don't have it yet, is that right?
Well, we more or less have it.
In New Orleans?
No, New Orleans, unfortunately, is too far to the south, and humidity is too high. Humidity, unfortunately, is very bad for absorbing the background radiation because it absorbs the background radiation.
So where will this take place?
Let me not get too specific right
that's
now
all right.
because I promised them we want to keep it quiet because
But
I've done some
then will that become your full-time preoccupation? And
Well, right now it's I'm working with the experimenters and I'm doing calculations to tighten the observations they'll be doing. We've got some very, very good people working on the experiments. Some of the outstanding experimenters of the current experimenters of the cosmic microwave background radiation are part of the team. It's a group.
is this public knowledge, or this is being done, behind doors?
Well, when we get the result, whichever it is, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll be refuted. We're going to discuss. We're going to present the results anyway.
All right.
That's what you have to do.
Big question. What's the time frame for coming to something that would satisfy you that you have been successful?
Well, I really can't answer that because part of the reason is we can't do experiments past the end of April because in the summer it's humid everywhere in the United States. And we don't want to, well, I say everywhere in the United States. You can go to a high mountain in which you can do experiments, but that's rather inconvenient. So we don't really have enough money to go to, say, a top of a high mountain.
All right.
If we had, we could conduct experiments in the summer
But
too.
you say it ends in April. When does it begin, the time period?
October.
October through April. So you're saying that at the end of next month, which is April, you will wait then and resume in October.
Well, we might get a result before then.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to find out, whether we have to wait till next
Well,
year or the year after that. Or
Well, I thought we would have a result in October of 2013. It's been a year since then, more than a year. What happened is that we made an unfortunate mistake. It was a natural mistake. We assumed that the electronics of 2013 was superior to the electronics of 1940. It was a natural mistake because everyone would think that. It turns out not to be true.
Okay.
We tried to buy a device which was equal in power to a device of 1940. It was not. So we had to build our own. That device is now built. And right now we're trying to assemble all the equipment and see if we can get the result.
All right. Now
We might get it in the next few weeks, but we're not going to tell everybody until we've checked and double-checked, even if we get a positive result. You don't tell everybody until you've checked and rechecked and double-rechecked to make sure you're not fooling yourself.
And when you've done that, will you appear on my show again?
I shall be pleased to do so.
But
Either way.
Well, my question is, I assume that if you get positive results, it will be major news.
Yes.
And I presume it will be in such form that other physicists and mathematicians will agree and support it. Is that what you?
They'll certainly agree about the experiment. Then there will be a dispute about the interpretation. That's the
Okay.
way it always works.
All right,
Because
well-
they're going to have to be pulled, dragged screaming into admitting the existence of God. There is a general opinion amongst scientists that God is an old-fashioned idea. It needs to be rejected. They are wrong. God is the cosmological singularity, and God really exists, and He really controls the universe.
Now, aside from the peer review of your articles, in general, do the people in the field of mathematics and physics consider what you're doing legitimate and hopeful, or do they think you're out in left field?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer because I don't know about generally. I don't care about generally.
Yes.
I care only about the people I respect, in particular the people who are first-rate experimenters. It's the first-rate experimenters that I think are the foundation of physics. They're taking me very seriously because as a consequence of my theory that the singularity has to exist, I predicted something that the billion-dollar Planck experiment confirmed last year, namely that there was an anomaly in the Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect. Don't ask me what it is. It would require too much discussion.
I wouldn't understand it anyway, and we've got a little more than a minute or so left. I'd like you just to tell the audience whatever you think you'd like to tell them.
Okay. Well, in that particular case, I will simply tell the audience that as a matter of physics, given the physical laws, you can be assured that God really does exist and really does control reality, and that you will be resurrected as a computer emulation in the far future, never to die again.
All right. Now, do you think that the religious leaders in this country and in the world, how will they feel about what you just said?
Well, I've just told you the reaction of one major theologian, Wolfhart Pannenberg. He was very positive. Now, what the average person, the average theologian will respond to this, I have no idea. Because it might be that their picture of God is something other than what He actually is. That they picture Him as an old guy wearing a white robe flying through the sky. Now,
With whom you can communicate.
with whom you can communicate. But remember, if you analyze all this theology by professional theologians, it turns out quite different from that picture.
Exactly. Well, we want to thank you folks for watching our show. And please come back again.